The report. Scott Bauer is with us this morning, the CEO of Prosper Trading Academy. Scott, what do you think? Intel, kind of a tough one, I guess, to suddenly have a lot of hope in for a market that's coming under some pressure. But who knows? Yesterday we had a monster day.
It is a real tough one, and as you alluded to, Intel, our earnings have not been real friendly to Intel over the last couple of years or so. But we're in this environment now, Oliver, and we've seen it already with a bunch of reports that even some negative reports, well, the street has taken that as, well, it's not as bad as it could have been. So I'm not saying that I'm looking for a big pop in Intel, but I think that we could get a big move in either direction. We could follow through on previous earnings, and we could see bad guidance, and this stock could implode. Also, the street may take something like we've seen with Microsoft, like we saw with Alphabet, and just say, okay, it's not as bad as it was. So volatility is actually not that expensive coming into earnings right now, at least in terms of where it's been over the last few quarters. So I'm buying what's called a strangle, and I'm looking for a big move just in either direction. I don't care what that report is. I just want this thing to move. So I'm looking to buy next week's 37 put to the downside, next week's 43 call to the upside. Try and buy that for somewhere 80, 85 cents. So I need a big move in either direction. 36.20-ish, 36.15 to the downside, 43.80, 43.85 to the upside. If I don't get that move, maximum I can lose is what I pay for this, but I'm just looking for some outlier here in either direction.
Okay, all right, nice. So looking for Intel to get a little crazy on the report, which it definitely can do. We've seen that. And we've seen it in both directions, because a few of those reports, when Intel actually did rally, it had some pretty big rallies, but for the most part, these have been down moves. But the long-term chart is super choppy, and it's always on earnings too. This is like every quarter, the market comes to some big conclusion about its future that it hadn't priced in or something, because it's super volatile all the time.
Agreed.
So as far as timing goes, Scott, a little bit of breathing room, or is this literally for just post earnings?
You know what? That's why I'm using next week's options, Oliver, because maybe we're not going to see that reaction just in one day tomorrow with expiring options tomorrow. So I wanted to give myself a little bit of time. I didn't want to go out beyond next week, though, because I didn't want to pay more premium. So we get the move tonight or tomorrow morning, based on this, but I've got all the way till next Friday with this position.
Because you can't really get time for these trades, because that makes it too expensive. Since you're buying volatility in both directions, you can't really do a strangle over a long period of time. You won't make any money.
Certainly not going into volatility. At least I don't, because as you just said, those premium levels get pretty juicy.
Okay. All right. Scott, I guess the other side of it too is, even if the earnings are neutral, the market could rip or the market could crash, and Intel goes with it, and your trade pays out too. Give me a quick thought while I got you here. We need all the input we can get. Things are pretty wild right now. Massive rally yesterday. It looked like we were going to rally on this negative GDP print this morning, but then it gets rejected. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a buyer of the good news, bad news, bad news, good news. I mean, the news that we've been getting is not great, and we've ripped on it. And I think in this environment, as we've talked about, you got to sell all these rips. And I'm not saying we're going back down to test any lows or anything, but I think you've got to sell every rip until things change. Things haven't changed yet.
Boom, there it is. Simple, beautiful, love it. Thanks, Scott.
You got it.
CEO of Prosper Trading Academy, Scott Bauer with the strangle on Intel, looking for swing in either direction ahead of the report.